Hi everyone, it's Gigabeef here, bringing you the next part of my beginner series, which is going to be all about the best weapons for new players. We're going to talk through the logic of why some weapons are good and some bad for players at different stages in their Tarkov career, so you can weigh them up and decide for yourself what is right for you. First off, Tarkov shooting is all about the ammo. I cannot overstate this enough. Weapons are just platforms to fire around and point it in the right direction, but the ballistics calculations really decide on the damage. On the wiki we have a super useful chart which is going to be your best friend when determining what to use, and we're going to reverse engineer the guns to run based on the ammo chart and not the other way around. To put it simply, a bad gun with good ammo can still kill armoured players and scavs, whereas a good weapon with bad ammo will struggle greatly at doing either. The guide on the wiki gives a score from 1 to 6 on each armour class, with 6 penetrating easily and 1 not penetrating at all. We'll want at least a 4 to stand a chance of really doing damage through each class. The best ammo is anything that penetrates all the way up to class 6, however some of these rounds are horrifically expensive and so are inaccessible for players starting out. Most are only purchasable from traders once you have a high reputation through quests, and can be expensive on their own, but having to buy from people flipping on the flea market really ramps up the cost. One major consideration is if we actually need to be able to penetrate class 5 or 6 armour. Lots of people on the wiki say you should always buy the best bullets, but if you're literally just starting out, you're mainly going to be fighting scavs, so firing 1000 ruble rounds at these guys is probably a waste, and penetrating class 3 or 4 is probably enough. Also, typically as a general rule, the higher the penetration the lower the damage. This is to try and realistically model the action in these rounds. High flesh damage like hollow points break apart and cause catastrophic tissue damage, but are no good at penetrating armoured surfaces. Likewise, a hard-tipped armour-piercing round is quite likely to pass straight through flesh, dealing less damage on the way. The actual damage of the round itself is an important consideration. Due to Tarkov's modular health system, rounds that can penetrate and hit over the breakpoints of 80 or 40 are highly valued, as this means thorax shots will kill players regularly in one hit for 80 plus, or 2 hits for 40 plus. One of the best penetrating rounds in the game, 545 Eagleneck, only hits for 37, meaning that it'll take 3 shots to the thorax to kill, which is why BS is usually considered better. 7.62 54R, 7.62 51 and 7.62 39 are all great rounds. For 7.62 54R, the standard rounds are the LPS, which are cheap and pen everything up to level 4 with ease and are semi-effective above that whilst dealing 81 damage, so one-shot unarmoured players and scavs in one hit. This is what makes the Mosin so popular, as you could potentially kill even the most geared players with minimal investment. The rate of fire is slow, so investing in 7N1 rounds instead isn't very expensive, and at 86 damage and penetrating even level 5 decently makes you incredibly scary to face. Rather than using the Mosin, I'd actually advise using the SV98. It's bolt action as well, but it's cheaper because everyone buys Mosins for the Tarkov shooter questline, which means there's continuous upward pressure on flea market prices. The SV98 doesn't have this pressure, so they're usually dirt cheap and perform just as well, and also have a 10 round magazine as standard. Obviously with bolt actions you need to be able to hit your shots, and so this comes down to your faith in your FPS skills. Also in this category is the SVD, which is a premium weapon, so too expensive to be recommended for newcomers, but I thought I'd mention it as a semi-auto 54R weapon is arguably one of the best in the game. 7.62 51 is also an excellent round. The standard here is M80, which is similar to LPS on pen, easy up to and including level 4, decent afterwards whilst being cheap. M61 and M62 are great rounds but are very pricey. In this category the go-to value weapon is the Vepr Hunter. Buy the SVD low mount and slap on a red dot, and this thing is a complete player killer and one of the best starter guns, and is a touch more forgiving in semi-auto than the bolt action weapons. Next up we have 7.62 39, the old large AK round. These are a good value option, as the standard PS round has good penetration for an assault rifle round at a very cost effective price. At higher gear levels, the issue with 7.62 39 weapons is that there is no better round than BP, which have firstly become extremely expensive, and secondly are only 4 in effectiveness against level 6 armour. However, for a value option this is a great choice, with the PS round allowing penetration decently up to level 4 armour for a very low cost. This is where a favourite starter gun, the SKS, sits. However, personally, I prefer the AKMS, which is dirt cheap and has a full auto for panic moments, with cheap 30 round mags, and they're great for a player on a budget. M995 and M855A1 for 556 platform, and BS Eagleneck for the 545 platform are pretty expensive, as are the 9x39s for the VAL and the VSS. You'll literally be shooting thousands of rubles a second. If you really want to run NATO rounds or a modern 545 AK, give it a go using M856A1, M855A1, or for the AKs, the BP, BT and BS rounds, but personally I don't think the ADAR or the AK-74 series unmodded are good value once the ammo is taken into account. These can be great weapons when kitted and running good rounds, but they are not easy on the wallet. Next up, never use the .366 TKM, these guns are just outright terrible. The penetration is bad for all ammo in this category. 9x19 is the 9mm round that we all know and love from other games. Unfortunately in Tarkov its penetration is really bad, even for the top rounds, which is the AP 6.3, which struggles even with level 4 armour. On stats alone you would never want to use this. However, the weapons that use it are typically lasers when it comes to actual handling. Even at stock, but preferably with a small amount of modding, you can get to the MP5 to an insanely low recoil. This should actually allow you to beam through people's faces and is the only reason to run it. This works even at surprisingly long ranges. If close quarters combat is your thing, there is a better option. The 4.6 30 round for the MP7 will turn you into a CQB monster, with the two middling rounds FMJ and Subsonic both outperforming 6.1 AP for the 9mm and a higher rate of fire than the MP5, you can really start to kick up a fuss in factory rapidly. At 50k for the MP7, I wouldn't call this a budget gun personally, but it's an option if you want to run SMGs. The top ammo for this weapon pens like 7N1 for the 54R category, which is pretty amazing. It also comes with Picatinny rails for both red dots and foregrips as standard, so lends itself well to light modding rather than running it at stock. Outside of these, I'd leave the other rounds for now. Shotguns are generally bad, with AP20 being passable at a push. 9x18 Makarov is awful, even the Klin with PMM, which is the higher powder shot with higher AP, is total rubbish but doesn't get the recoil benefits like the MP5 to possibly make up for it. 7.62 Tokarev is just for the TT pistol, 9x21 Gurza is another single pistol round, and 5.7 FN for the 5.7 pistol and P90 is both an expensive round and for expensive guns. 9x39 for the Val and VSS is also very expensive, and the guns are expensive too, so I wouldn't recommend it for newcomers. With all this in mind, there's a lot of flexibility and it's up to you as to what you want to choose. Give each weapon platform a go and see how you feel. For quest running or zero gear runs, as I've said in a previous video, I'd personally use the TOS shotgun as it's just as cheap as the PM pistol but more effective and costs 7,000 rubles. However, once you move on to any kind of actual effective weapon, I typically go for 7.62-39 using PS to begin, and I personally prefer the AKMS due to the bigger mags and full auto, although a lot of people prefer the SKS. If I'm going semi-auto, I'd rather use the Vepr Hunter, and I'm just not a big fan of bolt actions, but feel free to use the Mosin or the SV98 as a cheap alternative. So this guide should have given you the power to decide what guns and ammo you want to run in your raids based on logical choices starting with the ammo itself. You can tailor this logic to the maps you're running, for example full auto AKMS for factory, semi-auto Hunter for customs, and SV98 bolt action for woods or shoreline, for example, to maximise your success. If you learned something and enjoyed the content, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time for more beginners content.